Thank you all for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate Joy reading my prompt for me because it's very long and it's a mouthful. But what I really wanted to do today is give you my interpretation of this prompt. So my interpretation is connecting institutional support services to the college mission. And so I'm going to share my thoughts with you on this today. So it's really important for us to connect support services to the mission of the institution, because then we can help ensure that we're all going in the same direction with the same goals in mind. And I really think that senior staff needs to lead that way. So senior staff's the red person, and we're all the great people. So before we start, I'm going to just talk a little bit about, a tiny bit about background. We'll look at this Wyoming State Legislature mission for the college. We'll talk about our mission. And then we'll talk about aligning Western with the mission and then making those connections with the staff. Now, as we get into the next few slides, it's going to be easier for us to see some teams or employees' connection with the mission more than others. So for instance, we've always heard about the three legs of the stool, right? We have administrative services, we have student learning, we have student services as well. And you need all three of those legs to make the stool stand unless you're really well balanced. So when you look at student learning, it is very easy to see how they are aligned with the mission. So it becomes a little less linear for administrative services. And so that's kind of where I'm going to focus today. So earlier, before we received a new mission, Western Leadership Council determined the why of Western as improving lives through learning, which I think we can then use this with the mission to start aligning administrative services with those thoughts. So this is the legislative mission for community colleges in Wyoming. I'm not going to read that to you. You can all read that for yourselves. But what I get out of this mission is it's much broader mission. It's focused on traditional students and vocational students. Has everyone had a chance to read it before I click? When you get into Western's mission, and this is our new mission that we just adopted in January, we really encompass a broader scope of people and into learning and empowering them through our innovation and our inspiration. And so this is where I'm going to focus my presentation on today. So before we can align or connect employees and staff to the mission, we really need to make sure that Western's aligned to its mission. And because if Western as a whole isn't aligned, then we're probably going to be going off in different directions towards different goals, trying to figure out what's going on. So we need to start with making sure that senior leaders are on the same page and they themselves are headed in the same direction of where we need to go and making sure we're meeting our mission. For me, this means that we kind of need to put Western first, our areas second, our departments third, and what affects me as an employee last. Now, I first heard this or saw this when I was a very young staff at a CPA firm. Sorry, I'm getting very dry. Me and another young staff came in after a weekend, and the partners of the firm had a retreat. And on a flipboard, they had that written down. Firm first, division second, office third, me last. And as new young staff, we're like, wow, that's like terrible. Like, do we really want to work here? Because that seems a little wacky to me. But that's not how they were living their lives. That's how they were approaching their work. And so it really became much clearer to me that when we're making decisions, maybe what's best for me or my department or my area might not be the best for the institution. And so we really need to start looking at what's best for the institution first, rather than this is going to benefit my area, my department, or me. And so that's kind of really what I want to start with, and I want to make sure that, you know, senior leaders are kind of on that same page. So kind of to give you an example of this, let's say IT has a project that they want to do, and it's $20,000, and it's going to really kind of benefit the whole college. Well, me in the business office also has a project I want to do. It's around $20,000. It's going to benefit several departments and be a really great project. But is that something I really want to fight for if there isn't money for both? Is it better for me to step back and say IT needs to get this project because it really is going to benefit the college as a whole, rather than me fighting for this project that will only help a smaller group? And so not only senior leaders need to be on the same page and headed in the same direction, the senior leaders need to be accountable for making sure that each team and each individual knows their role and their purpose in the mission, and why it's so important to the mission, and where we're headed with the mission. Because in that way, if they know what their part of the mission is, then when they need to make critical decisions that might affect more people or the college, then they can make them with the best knowledge base and know where we're headed. Senior leaders also need to make sure that employees' work and teams' work continually support that mission on an ongoing basis. Managers also need to then engage employees by making work meaningful and connecting them and their position to the mission. Because I really do believe that employees who feel like they are part of the mission and engaged in the mission are going to be more strongly engaged in their work. So as I mentioned, administrative staff might not be as neatly aligned with the mission as other areas, but we are going to talk next about how we can connect them. So there's going to be two main components of this, and it's communication, which I'm sure we've never heard anything about that around here, and keeping the mission visible. And then senior leaders need to walk the talk of the mission. So everyone needs to see that senior leaders are on board with this and moving forward with this as well. So, oh, good grief. Oh. So senior leaders need to communicate and reinforce the connections and walk the talk of the mission. And this can be done in various ways, and some of them I've listed up here. So for instance, take orientation or Western 101. If we go over the mission in Western 101 and then never talk about it again, it's really not doing anything for us. But if we talk about the mission in Western 101 and then have the employees break into 2 or 3 small groups and talk about what each of their positions means to the mission, and then have them take those back to their managers and talk about what goals and things that they can build on those topics, then I think that starts helping connect them a lot closer with the mission. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to give you an example, is projects. So we've done 3-4 dynamic campus projects over the last 3-4 years. We could easily start those projects talking about the mission. Now I'm going to flip back really quick. I'm sorry that I have to do it so many times. So here's our mission. So when we're talking about the dynamic campus projects, what are we doing with them? Well, we're empowering and we're educating our employees to be innovative with our system. The system's already there, but we just may not be using it as efficiently and as effectively as we can. So starting the project with the mission in mind really helps us to kind of focus on where we're going and why we want to get there. So even though there isn't a linear relationship between administrative services and the mission, I think there is a strong connection. As the college couldn't function without student services or student learning, we couldn't function without administrative services. For example, to kind of give you some how our department kind of fits into the mission, our different departments fit into the mission. IT supports technology for student learning in the classroom, and then it also allows training for faculty and staff to learn new and innovative tools. The business office staff provide grants, disperses financial support for learning initiatives, and supports learning through completing payrolls. We pay the instructors, we pay students, we pay the staff that support these students. So I could go on for each of the areas of the administrative services, but I think the point I'd like to make is that Western would have a difficult time improving lives through learning and meeting our mission without administrative services. We need to make sure it's highly functioning, innovative, and thoughtfully proactive. It takes really sharp, thoughtful leadership to allow this area to excel and provide a strong foundation to Western to improve lives through learning. With this approach, you praise your employees for their roles in the mission, and you continually reiterate and reinforce their roles in the mission. Leaders must demonstrate an understanding of everybody's interconnectedness in the institution and how administrative services plays a role to allow the college to accomplish its mission. But not only do they have to help administrative services see that, they really need to help the college as a whole see what administrative services does to help all of us accomplish that mission. So yes, we need all three legs of the stool. They're all important components in aligning Western with the mission, and but it's senior leadership's responsibility to be accountable to make sure teams and employees know their part of that mission as well. Any questions?
Debbie, I have a question.
Sure.
You talked about the tiered system, what's best for the institution, what's best for our areas, what's best for ourselves personally. And then you talked about accountability and how leadership needs to be accountable in terms of that system. In terms of sort of the scope, what's best for the institution overall, what's best for areas, what's best for the individuals. But that whole discussion suggests that there is in fact a system by which things are vetted in a way for us to all understand what is most important to the institutions in our areas, the individuals. And then at one time when I worked here, there was sort of a vetting system. Like, we'll use positions for an example. AC would vet positions within student learning and student services. That council would vet things, and then at Western Leadership, they would go into more detail. But in recent years, at least the perception is, if I know for sure that's not happening in academic council anymore. So I'm confident saying that the perception is this structure that you are even using as the foundation for your approach here, it doesn't even exist. So can you speak to us about that?
So it's unfortunate that there is a perception that it doesn't exist, but I think that's something that with our new mission that senior leaders need to start with aligning, right? Aligning Western with that new mission, getting together and figuring out where have we gone off the tracks, what have we done? Because truly, if we're not putting the institution first, it's not going to succeed, right? If everybody's looking out for themselves, nobody's looking out for the college. And so I think it's just a matter of getting things realigned, working towards that goal together, having senior leaders really empower employees to understand and see their role in that process.
So are you suggesting then that some sort of procedure that everyone is aware of be implemented?
Well, so as I was preparing for this presentation, it's obviously a very large topic, right? I was thinking about it like, so I'm preparing for this presentation, but does it mean that this then goes away after this position is hired? Or is this really a focus that senior leaders want to continue? And so my hope would be it's something that they want to continue and that we just need to start working towards that end. Mm-hmm. Yes?
You mentioned accountability.
Yes.
And I was wondering what methods you would like to see in place to hold everyone and senior leadership as well to be accountable for that tiered structure that you mentioned.
You know, I think it's a group effort. So, you know, as the director of finance, if you don't feel as my team member that I'm following the mission or I'm putting other things in front of the mission, I would hope that we could have open communication about that, both from our staff and from the president, from each other as colleagues. You know, I don't know all of the ways that we could be accountable, but I think holding each other accountable and holding ourselves accountable is the way to start. Yes?
You had a line on one of your slides that said, make it inescapable.
Yes.
And it intrigued me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what you meant by that and what it would mean in terms of your overall presentation.
Sure. So have it visible. Post it in the building. Start meetings with it. Start meetings with reading it and talking about how that meeting is going to help when you're doing evaluations with your staff. This is our mission. What are the goals that you're going to set for yourself for the next year to meet that mission? I think just constantly reinforcing it and bringing it to the forefront. And the mission that's new is going to be a lot more easily done than our old mission. Mm-hmm. Yes.
What do you think your strengths and weaknesses are as a leader?
What do I think my strengths and weaknesses are
As a leader.
as a leader? You know, I really like to be collaborative with my team. I like to make sure that the right people are in the meetings that we're having. I try to do my best communicating and making sure that my team feels supported and hopefully leading us in a positive direction as a college as a whole. I talked earlier this morning about, you know, the fact that there still kind of feels like there's some silos with the different legs of the stool, and I think we would work better if we weren't as siloed, if we were more interactive and interconnected. Weaknesses, Kimberly, Michelle, you want to jump in here? Get some really honest answers. You know, I do care very much about my team and individuals, and so I had my skin thickened over the years, but you know, sometimes, you know, something gets through. Maybe I'm not as clear in some communications, but if you talk to me about that, I'm happy to, you know, revisit it and rethink how I'm communicating that.
are you looking for in the vice president position?
That I'm looking for or that will already greet me? You know, I think it'll be really great to be able to work more closely with physical resources and, you know, IT and just all of the different areas that fall underneath bookstore, print shop, all of those things. Tammy, her department of one, and really getting to really understand their challenges and what I can do to help and support them, and maybe finding, you know, ways to help them feel like we are part of the mission. Yes.
If you get the position, you're going to be taking on new departments like IT, fiscal resources.
Right.
Do you have any goals in mind for those departments or divisions?
You know, it's interesting when I got the job that I currently have. My stance was I want to get in there and really kind of just see where it is and why it's there. So in each department, I would kind of do that. What's working, what's not working. Let's see where we are before we can make changes to where we want to go. And so I think that's the approach I would take. Oh, sorry.
With the vice president position, sometimes you are left to make an uncomfortable decision. What's best for the institution, per se. Maybe funding a particular project is just not feasible. How comfortable are you making uncomfortable decisions?
So, fortunately or unfortunately, pretty much my whole career has been in that situation. I was an auditor for 10 years, so I had to, you know, broach uncomfortable situations with clients all the time, or with my staff, or with the partner. And here, I have to let you know that the IRS is going to tax you on the wellness center at a very low rate. So it's actually very, very, still a really great deal. But those are things I already have to do. I think having an informed decision and then giving out as much information in the communication with everyone to let them know why we made that decision, if it's appropriate. I mean, in some instances, it's not going to be appropriate to share everything, but you share as much as you can. And you have the right people in the meeting, so you make the most informed decision. Yes?
So you kind of talked this a little bit, but can you specifically say what is the thing that you would be most excited about in this position? That would just every morning you wake up like, I am excited to do that.
You know, currently I'm excited about my team and my staff, and I come in and we work really well together, and it's a great environment. And so that's what I would want, that I would hope for in this position, is being able to come in, work collaboratively with everyone on the team, and just have a really positive environment.
Debbie, how do you feel that you talk about informed decision making and making sure everybody that should be in the room is in the room when you discuss things? How important do you think data is in that? And what do you do currently to kind of go from a data informed perspective instead of just making snap decisions?
Well, data obviously is very important. In my world, I'm always looking at numbers and what does it mean to the bottom line, and how is the budget working, and what do we need to do there. So data is very, very important. And I hesitate to make snap decisions. Even when I had to announce that we were taxing the wellness center, I did a lot of research and a lot of reviewing of the IRS documents on it to make sure I was making the right decision. then I also had my payroll staff look at that as well and make sure that I wasn't going off in some direction that they didn't see. So I do think it's important to be collaborative and take the necessary time that you need to make a decision.
You feel that you like spreadsheets?
Russ, I love them. Any other questions? Oh. Dan?
I was late to your presentation, I apologize. Did you mention anything about the initiatives that you've taken on in the business office?
I did not. I just kind of focused on the administrative services and connecting them. What would you like to know?
I just wanted you to let everybody know what initiatives that you have taken on in the business office.
Some of the things I talked about this morning?
Yep.
So I've learned a lot over my career. And so some of the things that I've grown into in the business office is I created a set of business office standards and guidelines. And they're pretty basic, pretty self-explanatory, pretty common sense. But then at least it lets everybody know where we all start. So we're all kind of starting on the same playing field. The other thing that I recently started, and my two team members are going to say you haven't done it lately, but I'm going to start again, is I started taking one staff member with me to lunch every month because what I realize is that I want to help them succeed and do what they want to do and be happy in their life. And so what I do is I say, where do you want to go? Do you want to stay in the business office? Is there another job on campus that you're focused on that you want to get? Is there another job outside of Western that you want to get? And what can I do to help you? Because I think it's important that, they're a great team. I want them to be happy. I don't want them to feel like I'm crushing them down and making them stay in the business office, because nobody's going to be successful then. Were there other things that I'm forgetting?
Well, what about like the orientation book that some of those
Okay.
lines? Yeah.
So, when I got here, there wasn't a lot of communication out of the business office, unless you were doing something wrong or something was bad. And so one of the things that I developed was the orientation book for new employees, or for old employees that just didn't know how a process worked. And what I did was I went through all of the things that I thought an employee might need from the business office, and then I put that together in a little procedure, step-by-step guide, so that it's not something you have to remember and learn. You can always go back and refer to it. When I got here, I really tried to empower the staff to look at what they've been doing over the years and see if there's ways to improve or make it more efficient. We also worked on, much to their chagrin, process manuals for each position, which have been enormously helpful with transition. And so that was, it was painful, and it took a lot of time, a lot of their time, but I think very helpful in the end. Did you have a question?
Yes. College's enrollment has been declining the last few years, and it's projected that enrollment in colleges in general is going to continue to decline. How do you think Western should address that?
Well, I think it's a group effort, right? So, I don't think you can look to one person to say, these are the things that we're going to do and it's going to magically happen. I think there's a mix of things that, but I think we all have to get together and work towards that end. Or see where we can conserve on costs so that we can continue to serve the students we have in the budget we have.
Do you have any ideas, though, as to how to increase enrollment?
You know, I'm part of the SEM group on campus. Philip invited me to join that last fall. And, you know, so there's been talk that I could tell you about, but they're not my specific ideas. You know, I think having instructors go out and talk to students, potential students, is a great idea. Nobody has more passion about a subject than a professor or an instructor. And that will really come across to students. You know, we heard from various candidates for the dean position about possibilities as well. I'm happy to brainstorm, and I'm happy to get dirty and do the work that we need to do to make that happen.
Debbie, we're all different personality types, obviously. And we have different viewpoints and experiences that each one of us bring to the table in all of our areas. As people are normally, usually not the problem, but processes are the problem, the processes they exist in and the expectations that they're living in. Can you tell me what's your managerial style dealing with conflict?
You know, I think it's important to deal with it head on. I don't think you should try to brush it under the rug because it's not going to really work. I think you have to get the sides of the conflict. I mean, I think you need to hear both sides. And then I think you need to just be open to trying different approaches to making that work. Throughout my career, I've had to deal with it. And, you know, sometimes just having a sit-down conversation with whoever's involved makes it okay. Other times you need to do more invasive techniques. But I'm open to trying whatever it takes to make the situation better. Mm-hmm. Yes.
How does this role work with the legislature?
Well, I think it will work probably fairly closely, either directly or through the president, and also with the commission. And, you know, I have had some experience working with the commission prior and currently, and not as much with the Wyoming legislature, but in Colorado I did work with state auditors quite a bit. And so, you know, again, it's kind of going in with an open mind, open ears, hearing what the concerns and issues are, and then seeing what I can provide to either validate their issues or concerns or explain our side of those. Anything else? Well, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. And thank you.